Welcome everyone, Dylan Gemelli here today with a brand new video for you. So today we're going to talk about the SARM S4, also known as Andarine. But before we get started, I want to reiterate that I am not a doctor. I am not telling you to use S4 and or any other compounds that I discuss. I am simply providing you information that I have gathered over the years, and what you do with it from here on out is completely and utterly up to you. This is for your entertainment purposes only. So, that being said, let's get into that overview of S4 that people have been asking me for. Now, S4 is a SARM, all right, selective androgen receptor modulator. Now, SARMs themselves, what do? They bind to the androgen receptor. However, SARMs create selective anabolic activity. Now, compared to testosterone and other steroids, the advantage of SARMs, such as S4, is that they do not have androgenic activity in non-skeletal muscle tissues. Now, S4, what was it designed for? S4 was designed for the treatment of conditions in muscle wasting. Things like osteoporosis and benign prostatic hypertrophy, people that were suffering from things like AIDS and cancer. These were designed, SARMs, to prevent muscle wasting in these occurrences and to improve the overall quality of life for these people that were suffering. Now, how does S4 even work? Well, selective androgen receptor modulators, as I pointed out, they bind to the androgen receptor and they demonstrate osteo, which is bone, and myo, which is muscular, anabolic activity. Now, binding and activating of the androgen receptor alters the expression of genes and increases protein synthesis, which ultimately builds muscle, as most of you do know. Now, SARMs as S4 and others that I've talked about can cause muscle growth in the same manner as steroids, but unlike testosterone and other anabolic steroids, SARMs, as non-steroidal agents, do not produce the growth effect on the prostate and other secondary sexual organs. Now, SARMs not only represent a different kind of potential treatment option for a wide spectrum of conditions like muscle wasting, but they also have, that huge potential that we all know about for so many years for muscle building, for bodybuilders, fitness, and athletes, which many of them do use and have incorporated more so over the past 4 to 5 years than ever before, as the popularity has continued to grow. Now, S4 particularly binds to the androgen receptor in the muscle and bone to a third of the affinity of testosterone. Now, let's talk about just a few things that cite some evidence of S4 abilities, just a few things that I grabbed to share with you. Now, this was done at 3 milligrams per kilogram a day. All right, so it's not just 3 milligrams per day, 3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight per day. And it was able to restore skeletal muscle and strength in castrated rats. And this is important and applicable for the treatment of muscle wasting in male HRT. Now, there was also a 120-day study done that compared S4 and DHT, or dihydrotestosterone treatment, in rats, okay, and it demonstrated that S4 was actually able to maintain bone mass and bone strength to the levels of intact controls, and it also exhibited greater efficacy than the DHT did as well. Pretty sweet right there. Now, S4 also demonstrated the ability to improve skeletal muscle strength, increase lean body mass, and reduce body fat, and also prevent bone loss. Now, cutting is where S4 truly shines. Most of you know that. But if you don't, if you're brand new to this, S4 is mainly categorized on the cutting side of things. Okay? Now, certain steroids are considered cutting, things like Winstrol, Primobolan, Anavar. Now, these steroids don't offer too much in large gains in muscle mass. Winstrol, arguably. Primobolan, arguably good amounts, but they're not bulking, so to speak. But they're very effective at leaning out the body and continually growing lean muscle. S4 has similar properties, okay? I'm not telling you that S4 is as strong as Winstrol. That would make me nuts. But it has similar characteristics and aspects in how it works. So if you were going to compare a SARM, any of them, and take them to, what would be something they're similar to in the steroid world? Well, S4 would be similar to Winstrol or Anavar, more so than anything. Now, I just want to make it clear that SARMs are not as strong as steroids. I've said that a million times, but I just want to make that very, very clear. S4 fits into cutting protocols on anyway. With steroids, you can use them. That goes nicely along with Winstrol or Anavar. You can run it on its own. Other SARMs, especially cutting cycles, really pairs well with GW 501, 516, as I've discussed. One of the most disheartening things when you're trying to cut, though, is that many people do sacrifice muscle. Now, the drop in metabolic rate and hormone levels with a lack of calories is a perfect catabolic environment for fat loss, but also loss of muscle tissue, which most people want to avoid. Now, S4 has both anabolic and androgenic effects in muscle tissue. So it's not only going to help with fat loss, but it's also going to maintain and even increase muscle mass while cutting. And that's one of the things people love about it. S4 increases vascularity and it promotes a very nice, quality in that muscle hardening aspect. Similar, not to the same extent, but similar to like Winstrol or Masteron, where they're known as hardening agents. Let's put it this way, stronger than Proviron in that regard, but not as strong as Winstrol or Anavar in the muscle hardening or Masteron, but definitely on par. That's why it can be compared to those. Now, also, one thing that I want to bring up, when S4 is used in bulking and where I believe it really shines is in recomposition. That's why I always say it's paired best with LGD because they just feed off of each other. When you've got something for bulking and something for cutting that can still add the lean muscle, S4 and LGD pair tremendously together. Now, how about dosing? I'm going to actually do an entirely separate video on S4 dosing that explains how to increase the dose, but you always want to be aware that you need to start a little bit lower to assess your tolerance with the vision side effect, which we're going to talk about here shortly. 50 milligrams a day, male or female. Generally, females run it the same exact way as men do. And that's split because the half-life is only 4 to 6 hours, so you're going to split that dose. So it's like 25 milligrams in the morning, 25 milligrams 4 to 6 hours later each day while you're on your cycle. So that's something to be aware of. There is no concern for estrogen whatsoever. There is no conversion whatsoever to estrogen. So you don't have to worry about aromatizing, no aromatase inhibitor, nothing like that. Now, S4 is non-methylated. There is no concern for your liver, kidneys, etc. as long as you have real S4. There may be small amounts of suppression that you need to be aware of. It's definitely not suppressive like a steroid whatsoever, but there is some present. So you need to be aware of that. The main side effect that everybody knows about with S4 is vision disturbances. Okay, let me explain. First of all, the side effects are caused by the M1 metabolite and include nighttime blindness and a slight yellowish tint to the vision for some users. This is temporary, but let me explain to you something. It can happen and it doesn't happen to everybody. What really happens when you're changing rooms from really light to really dark or really dark to really light, there can be a yellow glare or tint, sometimes for a few seconds, sometimes for 10 to 20 seconds, and then it goes away. At night, I remember people talking about this, night driving, headlights could maybe blur you for a second, so you may want to consider, if you get the side effects bad, don't drive at night. It's nothing permanent. And a lot of people, some people do get them, they can't handle it, some people never see them. If you can try to dose it 5 days on and 2 days off to mitigate that, because in the 2 days off, because the half-life's so short, it's in and out of your system so fast, that tends to dissipate and then it builds back up during the week, you stop, dissipates, so on and so forth. You want to try to go to that rate, you want to try to avoid the 5 on 2 off so you're getting it every day, but if you have to go that way, you can. Nothing's permanent. You're not going to get blind. You're not going to have any permanent eye damage or anything like that. So you have to be aware of that because people say that and it's simply not true. But that is S4 for you. That's the overview. That's everything that you need to know about it. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody had a full understanding and grasp everything you need to know about Andarine S4. So that being said, www.isarms.com/forums. I'm also on the Evolutionary Forum as well as the Elite Fitness Forum. Dylan at icearms.com is my email where you can get me with all questions and comments. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That being said, stay tuned for plenty more to come. Dylan Gemelli signing off.